Hey friends, Sarah here with just a quick update on the Right Now podcast. Those of you who receive my Dear Creators newsletter already know about this, but I just wanted to put something out here for everyone. I launched the Right Now podcast back in January of 2015, so it's been a while. And at the time that I launched it, its mission was to give writers the time, energy, and courage you need to pursue your passion and write every day. Since then, a lot has changed. So, for instance, podcast mission-wise, I no longer say that you need to write every day. Although if that is your goal, I will happily support you in it. Right Now is also no longer really just a podcast for writers, but a podcast for creators of all kinds. I've found that the advice I give here and the things I talk about apply to people on a variety of different creative journeys, and I like to respect that. You may have noticed, if you've been listening for a while, that the show has also sort of tennis balled back, I don't know if that's a term, tennis balled back and forth from a solo/monologue show to an interview show, and then it was back to being a monologue, and then I did interviews again, and that was just me learning. So thank you for being patient as I really started to figure out what I wanted this show to be. Things have also changed for me in my day-to-day life. Since 2015, when I started this show, I have left my day job as a full-time marketing strategist to write and podcast full-time for myself. I've started my own company. I've ghostwritten several books. I've been a contributor to Forbes. I co-wrote a TV pilot, and I've produced the award-winning audio drama Girl in Space. I've also given a TEDx talk and spoken on both local and national stages about podcasting, writing, creativity, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I've also, the changes continue. I've also learned a lot more about both writing and creating, the craft of it. It's almost embarrassing now to think that even a couple of years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. And now, almost 7 years later, I am just constantly astounded by the stuff that I never knew I never knew. I can also admit now that I've never been especially great at releasing this show on a timely schedule. If you go back through my episodes, there's all sorts of gaps. This has not been a weekly podcast like I had always hoped and dreamed it would be, just because, life gets in the way, other stuff gets in the way. It actually takes a lot longer to create a 30-minute podcast episode than most people realize. And it takes money and resources and other things too to produce the show. But I found myself looking through my recent release schedule. In 2020, I hired an assistant who was not only helping me to create and produce the show, but who was also keeping me accountable and being like, Sarah, we need your next episode. And so for a while, I was really good about releasing weekly. And until October 2021, so just a couple months ago now, I missed one episode, and then I missed 2 episodes, and now it's December, and the last episode of the Right Now podcast I released was on October 8th. So, okay, what's going on? So some of you know that I keep a running list of Right Now podcast topics for episodes. And every time I look through this list, or every time I set up my microphone, like I did just now, I stop. And I've been thinking about, why do I stop? And the reason, it's been difficult to figure out, and I think it's difficult to explain, but I want to try to do that as well. So it's like this feeling of dread, anxiety, overwhelm, and self-loathing. And there might be a little bit of imposter syndrome in there as well. And, maybe a whole bunch of other stuff that I have not been able to identify yet. And it feels weird to say that to you. Well, I don't want to say hopefully you'll identify with these things, because I really don't want you to feel, dread, anxiety, overwhelm, and self-loathing. I don't want you to feel that, but I feel like it's likely you have felt those things before. And I also feel weird about that because I feel like I should have gotten over those things already because I have episodes about them. I have episodes about imposter syndrome and fear and overwhelm. And I feel like I should be past those things already and not struggling with them continually. And so I think that that has caused me to question, am I really being helpful with this podcast? Like, if I can't solve these things for myself on my own, is it helpful at all to talk about them to other people? I also sort of tend to think, as I'm going through that list of potential episode topics, I think either, I've said everything I have to say already, or I have nothing new or interesting to say, or I'm not qualified to talk about this topic or that topic, or other people could talk about this topic a lot better than I could, or no one wants to listen to me talk about this. And so I realize this is fear. I realize this is that imposter syndrome and dread, anxiety, overwhelm, and self-loathing. I realize that I might be throwing a little bit of a pity party. And I don't want to invite you to the pity party. And it's also weird that I don't feel these things about writing itself. Like the craft of writing, I feel good. I've been writing lately. I've been doing my little miniature goals every day. I've been writing 300 words a day or more on Girl in Space and some other projects that I'm working on, and that feels really good. So I'm not feeling imposter syndrome about the writing and the craft. I'm feeling the imposter syndrome when it comes to teaching and podcasting about the craft of writing. And historically, that's been sort of what the Right Now podcast is. So amidst all of these feelings, I have given some consideration and thought, do I want to end the Right Now podcast? But no. So those of you who are listening, I am not ending the show. Like we're going to keep going. I love creating the Right Now podcast. It feels great to record and release new episodes. I love connecting with other writers and creators. And I love hearing from you. When I see comments show up on the show notes for an episode out at sarahwerner.com, I love that. I love connecting with you. That's part of one of the things I think we miss out on as writers and creators is having a sense of community. And so I love doing that. I also thought about taking a hiatus, and I hate doing that because often when shows go on a hiatus or a break, they never come back, and I want to come back. Also, I'm not sure that taking a break or a hiatus would actually solve anything. So it's just like kicking the can further down the road. So what I want to do is realign the Right Now podcast with where I am today, how I've grown, how I've changed, how you are growing and how you are changing, how we are all evolving creatively together. So I've realized that I'm no longer comfortable telling other people how to write, because I can no longer say that the way I write or the way that anyone writes is right or wrong. We all have our own processes, and I don't want to be one of those things that says you're doing it wrong, or, you need to have an outline, or, anything like that, because I don't really believe that. Some people need outlines and some people don't. Some people like to write rough drafts and some people don't. Some people care about spelling and some people don't. I don't want to say that any of this is right or wrong or should keep you from being a writer. So speaking of that episode about outlining that I recorded last year, you can go back and listen to if you want. It's called Sarah Tries Outlining. I think it's like episode 92 or something like that, but I can check. But since then, I have realized that outlining does not work for me. No matter how much I want it to, how much it helps other people, it doesn't work for me. And I don't want you to respond to this and be like, Sarah, here's a way that outlining can work for you, because that's not the point of what I'm saying right now. The point of what I'm saying is I have come to the conclusion that there are really no universal rules for how to create, or at least none that I'm comfortable teaching as right or wrong. I don't want to have podcast episodes like, here's how to fully structure your novel, because who's to say that I'm doing it right and someone else is doing it wrong? Now, I do want to keep the conversation going. And I think that that's where the Right Now podcast is headed. I think that's where it's been headed for a long time. What I really want to do is lean into all of the things that really work for the show and all of the things that feel aligned with how I've grown and who I've become over the past 7 years of this show. I really want the show to retain a sense of warmth and hope and encouragement and connection. I think that's really important. I also still want to help writers and creators like you to find the time, energy, and courage you need to pursue your passion and write or create. I just really don't want to say, here's the one right way to do this, or hey, you're doing this wrong. So a lot of what I've said today comes from a newsletter that I send out every Monday. It's called the Dear Creators Newsletter, and you can subscribe to it over at sarahwerner.com/Dear Creators. That's sarahwerner.com/DEARCREATORS. Wait, is that right? CREATORS? Yeah, that's right. So if you're not subscribed to my newsletter already, please do go ahead and subscribe. You'll get more updates than you do simply by subscribing to my podcast here. That being said, the podcast is not stopping. What I'm going to do is use the rest of 2021. So we're here at the beginning of December. I want to use the rest of this month to hone and plan what I really want this show to evolve into, and to really take a look at what is helpful and valuable for listeners like you. So basically, we're going to go on that little break, and new episodes will be coming out January of 2022. So I'm really excited to share this with you. I'm really happy that I'm not stopping the show. And I'm really happy that you are giving me the grace and the time that I apparently have needed to reconsider and reevaluate where the show is going. So if you've listened to this whole message, thank you. I think you're fantastic. I hope you have a great holiday season coming up. I hope that you have time in your life to think about what you want to do creatively in the coming year. And I really want you to have the time to think about who is it you want to become as a creator. All right, that's it for this quote unquote short update that ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would be. But I just wanted to touch base with you and just kind of explain what's been going on. I'm not abandoning you. I will never abandon you. That sounds really creepy. You'll never be alone. No, but in the meantime, go ahead, listen to old episodes of the show. There's some good stuff in there, I think. Subscribe to my newsletter, Dear Creators. You'll get a letter from me every Monday about creativity. It's distinctly different from the info that you get here at the Right Now podcast. And until then, happy creating, happy writing, happy holidays, and happy life. And I will see you bright and early in January of 2022. Thanks, guys.